All right, we're going to get rolling here in just a moment. Just getting a few things set here. Let's bring the music down. I do have some of you guys over there in the other stream. Hello. YouTube is running a little behind here, but that's okay. We're going to get rolling here in just a moment. Yeah, so for you guys, questions in that box over there will propagate right to me over here. For those that are on YouTube, just go ahead and if you have any questions today, go ahead and put it in the chat. And hopefully I can get to some of those. I imagine there's going to be quite a few people joining late today. I'm a little bit earlier than my normal time. So we're going to get rolling here and get this started here. Am I recording this? Let's see. There we go. So now we're recording. Hello and welcome to Macro Mondays here on Landy's Crypto Corner. Today is August 7th, 2023, and we're going to start off with Bitcoin here on the daily, and we will take a look at some of the higher term timeframes and then weave that into our daily analysis and lower term timeframes as well. We do have a little bit of a setup going on here, kind of market wide, with a lot of cryptos, and there's a lot of setups going on in traditional markets as well. So we will review Bitcoin. We'll take a look at a few altcoins. We'll jump over to traditional markets, take a look at gold, and of course we'll also take a look at Dixie as well. And if there is any requests, I do ask that you put them in the comments now for both streams. For YouTube, what I'd like you guys to do is I'd like you to, if you have any requests for a specific crypto stock or whatever it is, go ahead and put it in the chat box ahead of time, and I'll scroll back through once we wrap up the initial analysis here when I get to the request portion of this stream. This is also being recorded for those of you who cannot make it to the live streams here. I've been getting a lot of requests to post at least the initial analysis. So let's go ahead and take a look at Bitcoin here on the daily. As I did not have a Bitcoin in 60 seconds video yesterday, I do apologize. That was due to an injury, injured my non-dominant hand and doing some work around the house, and then my son, who needs a lot of assistance, went to go help him up, and he shifted his weight, and I lost my balance, and in order to not fall with him, I slammed my hand on the table and bent my wrist all the way back. Thankfully, it's not broken, but I do apologize about not having a Bitcoin in 60 seconds video yesterday. But there, for those of you that have not been regularly keeping up with things, the Bitcoin in 60 seconds videos are shorts. So when you go to my channel, I've been getting some questions like, hey, you haven't uploaded in such a long time. Well, under the regular videos tab, no. But on the live stream tab and the long form playlist, you'll see the actual streams. And then on for the daily analysis, it's going to be under the shorts tab when you go to my channel. So yesterday I didn't get one in, but the targets are the same. Bitcoin did not do much over the weekend here. Still closed below the lower first standard deviation of the Bollinger Bands. I had the target of the lower second standard deviation. If that is lost in a daily close, that's this wick low over here at, basically 28,850 or so, 28.8 and under there. Closures below that lower second, which is now at around 28,750, would, indicate that Bitcoin's going to head back down to the wick low of this move at around, that 28,405 area, and possibly deeper down into that weekly support at 28K. As I've been saying, if that doesn't bounce directly below, there is the daily supports down here at that 27.5 to 27.250. And realistically, this is an opinion. We'll have to evaluate price when it gets there, but my next big area would be that 26, 750 to 27K, where this weekly is coming in below those dailies here. And it would just kind of make sense to go and tap the liquidity there. In my opinion, that is not technical analysis. Bitcoin is still in a tight trading range and has not yet completely broken down, right? So it's just kind of playing and going sideways. Incredibly boring price action. It gets exciting now. You know that that this is the doldrums of a bear market transition when we get excited about a high in at 29,180 and a low in at 26,660. So we've got like an $800 range there, maybe, depending on your exchange. So it's even a little less than that, like a $700 range. When people are getting super excited about that kind of a move, you know that it's boring. And, instead of just talking about the downside here and making fun of people getting excited over very, very little price action, which myself included, by the way. So I am part of that camp. To the upside, we can see that the basis band is now a little bit below that overhead resistance here, coming in at 29,400. And, that area is 29,4 to 5. I do think that the close open structure here at around 29.7 to 28K is going to be a big one around that upper first, which is now coming in at 29,725. If it were to move up above there, it's got to get above this wick high, which is lining up with this upper second standard deviation around $30,000, slightly above, like 30 to 50 bucks. So that's still bearish as it stands right now. Bitcoin needs to recover on a daily and higher term time frame basis above this weekly overhead resistance coming in at 30,300. Take out these wick highs just above there at 30,400. Then I do think it's clear to go test the top side of the prior range above, and maybe even deeper up into the $31,800, $32,000 area, low 32s. And then we kind of reevaluate it from there, because as I've noted before, let's go to this chart here, get on the daily. We'll come back to the swing fail stuff a little bit later, as it's just playing in those areas that we spoke about last week on Wednesday and Friday. Let's get on the daily here. Let's switch over to RSI and do a little bit of calculating, because we can get some confluent levels with RSI. This is a fancy dancy RSI paid indicator. As many of you know, I've said many, many times, I'm a big fan of the developers over at Crown's Crypto Cave or app.crowntrading.net. You don't have to go and buy these. There's free versions of these. I just really like, supporting those guys over there. They do great work. I've also gotten permission to use code from some of these guys in my indicators. So, you don't have to follow my lead with that. I don't have any affiliation with them. I don't have any financial affiliation with them, I should say. There are free indicators that have little info boxes like this for RSI, but I like this one in that I'm used to it. And I'm used to reading it. So if Bitcoin were to head up, you can see that the bullish control zone is the teal zone up here. First, it'd have to get above the midline here, the 50% read, or the 50 read, I should say, of RSI. This is a Wilder's RSI, not Cutler's. So this would be 29,468. That's right in that overhead resistance. And the bullish control zone is coming in at 30,500. So, even getting up to 30,500, taking out some of these lower high areas, the last wick high was coming in at 30,350. So, getting above there would avoid bearish divergence from this area over here. But then we've got a higher RSI reads above that are likely going to populate some bearish divergence. So this is sitting at 66. So let's go ahead and see what that number would be. If Bitcoin did bounce hard from here, we'll do the downside as well. We'll take a look at the bearish control zones and some possible areas for bullish divergence. but what did I say that was? 66? We'll say 66. So it would have to get above this high here. And yeah, we'll call it 66. So now that will update this number and let us know what the price would be. It would have to get above there, so it'd be 67. My apologies. Let's go ahead and do that, and we can get some confluence zones. So 67 for the bullish control zone would be above this last high here, which, by the way, this last high, I will call this out before we get to it, is the actual high at 31.8. So it would need to get above this area on price. It would need to break the high and get above here on RSI to avoid bearish divergence from here. But you can see there's higher reads on RSI above, but we'll take it one step at a time. This brings the bullish control zone to 31K. So it can get a lower high and throw another drive of that would be a hidden bearish divergence drive. And I believe either way it's bearish divergence. So because this would be 31.8, you get a lower high, higher high at RSI, and that would be just another drive of bearish divergence. And we would have this all the way up to this high here, which is coming in at 72. So it would need to get above a 73 while breaking the structure of the highs above us to not create bearish divergence. So we would go 73, and we can get the number for that, at least as it currently stands. And that would be, let's see, bullish control zone, that would be 32,164. So I do think that if Bitcoin were to choose the upside route, it's probably going to be capped in and around that 32 to 33 area, and it will create more bearish divergence. We would need to see some reaccumulation on the other side. There is an argument to be made if it does head up from here and regain the range above, that this would be a bit of reaccumulation, and then we're going to go push higher over time. I'm of the opinion that it's going to create quite a bit of bearish divergence. Any reads below that 73 now. So I kind of went through and already did this, but I wanted to go through and show you the exercise that I do when evaluating this. I'll put this back to its prior area, and we can check out the downside here. So in order to regain this moving average, which is a 12 SMA, it's got to close above 29,140 or so. Bearish control zone is 28,739. Kind of already tested that in today's candle, I believe. Let's take a look at that wick here. That wick was coming in at that was 28,660 actually today. So we hit 28,6 today. So the bearish control zone has been tested, but if we did see that area closed in now, if we saw a closure around there, that would still be inside of the wick low down to that 28,473 as it currently stands. And the deep bearish control zone here, or the bear critical zone as it's noted in this particular indicator, is falling right at $26,000. And this is important to understand because $26,000 is basically it's not basically, it is a weekly support area. So $26,000 on the daily is the bear critical zone. That is still inside of the weekly lower second standard deviation, which is coming in just below there at 25,700 to 750 or so. And the weekly support is this close open structure here at around that $26,000. So we do have confluence if things were to absolutely fall apart to the downside in and around the local zone. Inside of this this bar here, this is our August 1st bar with that wick down to the 28,477, 470 area, right at that daily support. So bearish control zone, even if we see closures inside down here, that would be right in and around the bearish control zone. If we dip a little bit past it, that would be confluent with around $28,000. So, we're seeing a lot of things kind of lining up now with overhead resistance and the zone below. It's just a matter of, what the heck is Bitcoin going to do? So in this case, let's dig a little bit deeper with some momentum here. Momentum on the daily is going to remain turned to the downside, funny enough, below that moving average that we just talked about on the RSI at around that 29,169. Nice. So that would cross it back up. So closing candles below there would get continued downside of stochastic momentum. And this is a regular Stoch. This is not a Stoch RSI for anybody that might be new. This is a 6/3/14/255 look back. So 6K 3D 14 period look back. And it is a regular Stoch, not an RSI Stoch. So it's reading close over close price. And, it's fairly accurate at getting like pressure zones to the upside and downside. Since we last talked, we had the 2-day closure come in, and it's just kind of hanging out in the areas that we've talked about that it needed to turn in if it's going to turn, and that is in this case going to be 28,973, so 29K. It is currently turned to the upside here, just a slight beginning of what you would consider a signal. This signal will build a bit more and be a confirmed low above. You'll see most indicators confirm the low above 29,163. So again, we're coming into that daily area that we talked about on RSI, where that 12 simple moving average is. And this is where it needs to close to set this as a low. That is above the doji wick high here and the open of the bear candle before it on the 2-day here. And again, this thing's not out of the woods until it takes out $30,000 of the $30,000 high of this larger doji of this smaller range down here. And of course, we've got that 28,477 low on that guy. So we're just kind of stuck inside this candle here. So technically, these are all inside bars, if you will. Now, they're not necessarily inside closing bars, but they are inside the wick of that day, that 2-day candle there in this case. And, if it does set a low here, the target would be, right back to that 29.5 to around the 29.7 area. And then we can start targeting the closing lows up here at around 29.6 to 7, and then that 30K up top. If it could take that out, it's going to run that range up top and try that weekly that we just talked about a moment ago. Do we have anything big in terms of closures coming up here soon? So not today. So we've got Wednesday for the 2-day. Again, we have the 3-day closing today. And the 3-day, from a candle structure outlook, this is still presenting itself as downward pressure when just looking at the candles. Now it has put in a bit of a swing down here of this low side structure. If it can hold it up, basically around when you're looking at a chart like this on the 3-day, it's basically got to hold this wick low over here, or else it's going to test the actual wick lows that it keeps bouncing off of down here. And that's that daily support at 28.46. And in this case, it's at 28.850. If we start seeing like 3-day closures, then it's wise to be looking at the next set of highs to the downside for the 3-day chart, which in this case is going to be this set of highs over here coming in at 27,700. And of course, we've already been testing that wick high. Actually, no, this wick high. Yes, I'm correct. Yeah, that's same wick high. It should be the same wick high at 28,473 there. So already testing the wick. Is it being front run a bit? I do believe it is. I'd be looking for that close around 28K and below, down into those areas just under there, where this close open structure is coming in to that 27,250 to 27.5 area. We have the 5-day is going to be closing with the Wednesday candle, still downside angled. Nothing new here. When taking a look at the bull bands for the 5-day, we've already tapped on the weekly. or I'm sorry, on the 5-day basis rather, at 28,500 or so, getting under there. Got the 200 EMA coming in at 27.5, and then the lower first there at around 26,800. So that's our zone that I've been pointing out on the Bitcoin in 60 seconds video, kind of where that weekly support is at 26,750 to 27K. So keep that in mind. And when looking at the weekly, we have the same kind of outlook on the bands here that we've seen pretty consistently the past 2 weeks or so. So lower first is at 27,178. The 200 SMA is slightly above there at 27,337. And then the basis here has moved up slightly to around that 28.6 area. And this is going to be important on the weekly to watch. If it can take out this weekly doji wick high, likely going to go up. That's the upper first standard deviation there at 30,300. I'm sorry, $30,060 to then go test the 30,300 area, which is this high over here. And below, last week's wick low would also be below the basis band here. And then I would be targeting this lower side structure at the lower first and second in and around that, $26,000 or $27,000 to mid $27,000 area. And that would be on a closing basis. So just keep that in mind. And that's going to be it for Bitcoin right now. Let's go look at traditional markets. Hi, guys. I see a few more of you guys have piled in over there. Excellent. On YouTube as well. Hello. All right, so let's take a look at, let's just kind of look around the markets a little. Now, actually, I know what I'm going to talk about here. There is a lot of talk going on about what's been going on with Justin Sun and Tron and the TUSDs and Huobi, right? That's how you say it, I believe. I haven't said it a lot. So the exchange, there's some stuff going on overseas with that, and there's a lot of speculation about USDC and USDT. And then you had PayPal launch their PYUSD. So their PayPal stable coin here in the United States. It has not been launched internationally. Either way, there's been an awful lot of like, oh my God, Tether's depegging. Okay, let's take a look at it. When looking at Tether, I'm not a Tether shill. I think that there is a lot of problems with stable coins in this space, but I'm just seeing a lot of unnecessary takes where, for instance, here on USDT USD, you can see that it has been in a bit of a drawdown, for a couple days here, and then now it's back up. Now we saw that in total, it did depeg a bit down to 97.5 cents, and then it stabilized here at around $1 again. This is pretty typical when we see sharp moves in the market, and I do want to bring people's attention back to the 2017, 2018 when Tether was also supposed to die. And then, of course, we had 22 when it depegged all the way down into the mid 80 cent region. So I think that it's unnecessary. Look, I'm not a fan of Tether. I'm not a fan of USDC and a lot of these stables. But they are a large part of this market in general. So it is something to pay attention to, but I'm seeing a lot of like the sky is falling. Everything's done for, crypto's dead. Like all this really kind of bizarre bonkers takes. And I just don't, I'm not a fan of takes that don't match reality. Now, the only thing that I would say is I would pay attention to USDT as it is paired to some of the more one of the more traditionally popular exchanges. And in this case, I would not be using Kraken like many of these people are doing, or Huobi, which many of these people are doing. Um, and they are painting the narrative as in like across the market, it is fully depegged and it's going to die. And what I will say is that USDT, in this case, USDT USD on Coinbase has been in a steady downtrend and it is accelerating to the downside. Now, when looking at, you can do technicals on this, although the technicals will not hold any weight if it starts accelerating to the downside, because it is an imbalance of liquidity. So here we have it trading at around 99.87 cents. So it's depegged on Coinbase, and it did get down to 99. Well, what's it trading at? 99.87 cents, and it got down to 99.77 cents. So look, it's not parity, and it being not parity means that it's not being very stable, right? It should be pegged at that dollar and sticking to it. But many people also want to not pay attention to the fact that it was trading up over the dollar over here for an extended period of time before the steady drawdown back in March. We've had some rises and then falls, and then now it is falling. And quite frankly, it's not a good look. But this is not the first that we've seen this happen. And I mean, you can just observe this wick back in 22, and this was down to 97 cents. Pretty violent. It snapped back pretty quick, but it took a little while. The only thing that can be that I do think is a bit of a concern is that it's not just wicks down and then a snapback. It is a steady decline. So that is something that I would pay attention to, but this is not. It's not something that I'd be doom and glooming about, at least not yet. Maybe the sky is falling people will be correct in the end, but it's not actionable, and you shouldn't be making rash decisions based on it until till the time actually comes here. When looking at something like USD, USD, it's been fairly steady across the board. And again, when you take in this, there's been a steady drawdown in dominance for USDC, and I don't know if it's ever going to be able to come back. We'll see. We've got USDT dominance has been steadily increasing as well. Now, part of the reason why many are pointing out that USDT is having a bit of a depeg problem is because there is not that many off ramps right now for even stables at the moment, and USDC is one of the is being utilized as an off ramp, and trading the USDT to USDC and then off ramping that into US dollars and so on and so forth. So there is a conversation to be had around that. I would look at it as not as big a deal currently as people are making it out to be, but it is possible that that it could become a big deal. It's just the fever pitch at which people are howling about it is a little bit more concerning than the actual issue is currently. Doesn't mean they're going to be wrong, but if you are following any of these people on social media in the crypto space, just be rational. It's not something that is that dire right now. And you can see that there is a lot of flow coming back into Bitcoin here. So we have Bitcoin dominance headed up and pushing that upper second standard deviation. Nice higher low here. Didn't even come down to the 50% region, did it? It did. It's just slightly above it for dominance there. And it is headed back up. And I do expect it to stay to the upside here, especially when looking at the 2-day, pushing that basis at around 50.45%, trading slightly above there at 50.47%. I'd be targeting this area up here at the upper first, which is lining up with this low at around 51 to 51.1%, maybe even a little bit higher around the lower high there at 51.5 to 51.7%. And that, in most cases, that does mean that there's a bigger move that is baking and happening. And this usually occurs both to the upside and the downside. So, I'm going to come back to Bitcoin and point out really one last thing here on the daily 2-day is there's a big move coming, right? Like you can see the compression on the Bollinger Bands here. And when looking at BBWP and its charted format, you can see it down here. It's 0.08 or 0.79 over 2.46. So what does that mean? When looking at that box, that means that BBWP is floored and it is under the moving average. So when it gets over the moving average and starts moving, then that's likely going to equate to Bitcoin being below the lower first, lower second area on any kind of aggressive expansion on the daily here. You're going to see it below the lower second standard deviation of the Bollinger Bands at around that 28, 740, 750 area. That would beget, re-expansion of the Bollinger Bands more aggressively to the downside. BBWP would then pick up. One of the big things is, again, when looking at expansion and continuation areas for bands, in and around the lower second standard deviation and upper second standard deviation, so lower down here, upper up there, of course. Well, the lower, if we do see expansion down, it is directly into an area of support. So if we saw closures below that then regain that lower second, then we look right to that lower first, as we could be seeing a reversal set up because there is support directly in this area. It has been tested on, relatively high volume for what we have been observing in Bitcoin lately. So be aware of that expansion down and then a snap back up, basically. So if we did see closures below the lower second, this is going to be the criteria. So pay attention, please. Closures below the lower second will beget or start expansion to the downside. And we could see it continue to get expansion to the downside. But if we saw it expand into this support area, even if it's just the top side of the support, even the bottom side there, and then snap back and regain the lower the lower second standard deviation, then we immediately look to where that lower first standard deviation is, as that is going to be the area that could begin to set up a reversal off of the lower second, lower third areas. So, and yes, still heavy downtrend. Lower first to the basis is typically where you see things trend. So below the basis to the lower first, you'll see a downtrend. Be pretty strong, and then use that upper first as like a trend reset and then get continuation, or we begin to see reversal structures in many cases. And the same goes to the upside. We see it trend up, the upper first to the basis, maintain the trend. Lower first then is kind of like the trend reset. You see the bounce, and then we see the reversal, and we're just sticking below that basis band. So something to pay attention to, because when looking at that 2-day, it's going to be tough to keep momentum down on the daily 2-day for like an extended period of time. So I think that I would favor some quicker moves when it comes to looking at Bitcoin here. When we go over to traditional markets now, this is where things get a little bit interesting. We've been following up with it's doing what I explained, which is the reason for the little chuckle there. On Wednesday of last week and Wednesday and Friday, I had mentioned, the areas of interest, and it has now hit that area of interest. And I had mentioned on Friday, let's see what happens on Monday, because it was right at the basis band. and I would expect it to come back up and test that resistance around the upper first again, but it does need to take out that high from Friday at 35,506 to go and test this actual high and maybe higher to the upper second standard deviation, as this upper first and is sitting right in that overhead resistance zone at 35,515. That is also where the upper second on the weekly is. So this is, it could chop around, but this is kind of what I was expecting to happen for today on Dow. We are getting that look, and there is a bit of a meme trendline regression here on Stoke. 35,662 is what the pivot has updated to, and that's basically the high up here, this gap fill high. I believe that's around the actual wicks, huh? Yeah, so that's going to be, it's around the actual wick high. So got to get above this resistance again to actually pivot that back to the top side again. Closing like this on this particular candle right here would be a low on a closing basis, but not taking out that wick high. Until that's taken out, I wouldn't be looking too much further up. And in fact, I'd be looking for things to maybe run back to the basis and to the lower first down here at 34,666, and even the lower second down there at 34,240 or so on the daily, down to that basis band on the weekly, and it's still fine. You could even see it come all the way back to the 200s, but that's not the first thing that I'm looking for. And that's all the way down at 33,615 to 33,5 or so. Not necessarily the first thing I'd be looking for, but when looking at the daily, we're seeing the move that I had speculated about. We have seen the lower first update to, around this high side structure over here. So coming down to that 34.5 to 34.60, 34.666. Oh boy, the devil's number. We could definitely see something like that. There is some gaps that could be filled down here as well if it does get below that lower first. For now, I would watch how this closes today. If it can make it above that upper first standard deviation and take out Friday's wick high, then I'd be looking for it to run the highs again and maybe higher. Let's go ahead and check out NASDAQ. NASDAQ is not looking quite as strong on that bounce as Dow, but we've got the lower first area that it is trying to hold on to. That is also the upper first here on the weekly at around 15,300. If it can regain the basis, that is right at that wick high at 15,523. And then I'd be looking for it to go test that upper first at around 15,700 to around that 15,800 area. But realistically, based on what the weekly setup was from last week, this thing could potentially get some hard mean reversion down to that basis. So always be aware that 14, the mid 14s to the low 14s are still in the cards for this. If it does lose the lower first at 15,300 or so, I'd be looking for a daily drawdown and to that weekly basis over time, wherever that does eventually land in the mid 14s, and possibly even the low 14 area here at around 14,350 or so. Of course, that would imply getting back below the lower second standard deviation here at 15,133, and then taking out this prior support zone below us here in the 14,900 to 1,500. Or 15,000, $14,900 to $15,000, and that 14,700 area, which if it does hang out above there, the basis on the weekly will likely move its way up there in the coming weekly closes. Doesn't look too bad, 15,688, so basically 15,688. Basically looking at 15,700. So that's anywhere above the upper first. If we do start seeing it put in a low here it's going to start at that 15.23, and then we'll come back to it most likely. That will be the target to the upside on a bounce from here. And the downside's pretty clear. Below the lower second at 15.133, it's right into those supports down there. SPY, that's SPX. We'll look at SPY. Same kind of thing, bouncing off the lower first, as expected, in a nice uptrend like this. And that's coming in at that 447. If it can get above the basis and the retest up here of this high at around 1452, we're looking at 14. Man, not Landy's day today, huh? 451.83 to 452.92. So basically above 452, 453 area. I'd be looking for it to run that upper first, and that would also open up targets to the upper second here on SPY. And that's coming in at 455 and 459 to 460 area again, around the highs. If it does lose the lower first down here at 447, I would be looking to the lower second again. That's coming into these supports over here, or these highs, I should say, which should, in theory, act as supports. Pretty much perfectly lining up with this lower second at around 444, down to possibly even that lower third at 440. So, and that's, it could even dip below there, but then we're probably looking at the bottom side support at around 431 to the basis at 430 or so in the weekly. But we got to give it a chance to see if it's going to put in a low in today's candle into tomorrow at around that 452, 453 area. And we'll know by end of today if it can hold that lower first, of course, in today's candle at around 447. So for today, bulls want to see it hang out above 447 and start pushing that basis on the daily, get a nice squeeze, and then we'll see which way we get expansion, right? Fairly low BBWP right here. It is up over the moving average, but this was a mean reversion play. So that's going to do it for traditional markets there. Let's go ahead and look at commodities. We got gold here. Gold on the daily is getting a fairly nice bounce off of that lower second. Of course, finding resistance right around that lower first standard deviation at 1941. Put in a nice little wick high here on the daily at 1946, and then headed back down below that lower first. As long as it's below there, I'd be looking for it to hang around this weekly level right here, which is 1935 to the lower second, and the wick low over here, which is falling between 1925 and the lower second is now coming in at 1927.50 or so. Below there, I would look for this to run down to somewhere around the 200 EMA, 200 SMA area, around this low side structure, around 1910 to 1900. So that is my take on gold at the moment. If it can take out this last spike high here at 1946, then I'd be looking for it to head up to the basis around this spike high of this last bear candle that's kind of almost set this low side structure, because we do already have a low set here, but this open needs to be taken out right there at 1950. Above there, it's got room up to the basis around 1955 to the weekly there at 1960 to 65, and the upper first just above it at 1967 to 1970. And of course, above there, then it's right back to the high side structure here around the upper second in the 1980 region. Right now I don't have an opinion until it gets above 1946, and then I got to see it start closing above 1950 and take out that basis band and up. To the downside, we start seeing it back below 1925. It's probably going to run this low side structure over here around that 1920 and under down to 1900. Just take it day by day with gold at the moment. The nice thing is for gold bugs is, above 1961, this is going to update later today. And if it does hold this low side structure around the lower second standard deviation and can reverse off of it, This would be a nice little momentum reset. And this would be, a nice little trend break to a higher low structure over here, right around that 200 on the daily. And then we would be looking back to those deeper targets. So be aware of that and keep a close eye on it. What's the weekly looking like, though? The weekly is looking a little bit more bearish in terms of band setup, but in terms of momentum, 1916 is the area that needs to hold up. So that last higher low on the daily relative to what we just looked at, this current low, this last higher low over here at 1911 would need to hold up and would need to get a nice bounce off of that area for the weekly to remain with that nice upside posture on momentum. And when looking at the final item here for the day, we can go over to Dixie and we can see that we basically reversed right around the area that I spoke of. It didn't quite want to retest some of those areas up top just yet. Did put in a bit of a high structure, not fully confirmed, below 101.95, 101.959. If we do see closures there, highs in, looking for this to come back down to the lower first on the weekly at 101.30, to the basis on the daily at around 101.20 and possibly under, down to that $100 area and slightly below. But I would take it day by day. I want to see how this daily closes. If it does get below that wick at 101.74 especially, then it's going to be mid to low 101 area down to the upper $100 area in and around this prior low. But as long as it's trading and closing above 100 rather, and 55 cents, it's still good. Still an uptrending structure off this low in the context of a longer term downtrending structure. Yes, there's a trend line you can draw here that it rejected at as well, if you are into that. Again, 102 is kind of the big number for it currently. That's our little support resistance level that it could turn into a deviation here on the daily. And when looking at momentum on the daily, it is crossed down initially and likely going to get continuation down on closures today below that 102.56. So it is pressure down on the daily. 2-day is still pressure up, though, above 101.18. So I wouldn't be looking for it to necessarily fall apart. But if it does start getting the daily, into the areas that I just spoke of, I would pay attention to where the 2-day is coming into this Wednesday. What's the weekly looking like? Weekly still down below 101.80 and still pressure down below 101.80, and it's been closing above there. I don't know why that particular indicator. So it is down. It will cross up this week if it can close above 101.80. So it was pressure down coming into this weekly. And now it is, we see close over closes are getting higher. So I imagine if we see a closure above 101.80 this week, you're going to see that momentum pivot somewhere around this low side structure, maybe even around, 101 or under it in the $100 range. So that would be something to pay attention to on the weekly. I'm not too enamored with it just yet, but we have seen more bearish resets on this as it stands right now. But the weekly could, if the weekly does turn, it's likely to go test that 103 area. And if we did see the high here taken out at 104.70 or so, this was a deviation on the more macro time frames, likely to set a pretty major low for a while. But all of that is unconfirmed. Nice bounce off the 200 SMA on the weekly as well. All right, that's going to do it for the bulk of my analysis today. Do forgive me if I missed anything. I will try to follow up with that stuff on Wednesday. And we'll kind of go from there. So let me go ahead and take a look at the chats here. Let me go ahead and wrap this recording so that I can start a new one. All right, so let's go ahead and flip the music on for a moment while I go through the chats here and kind of see where we're at. We'll take it down a little bit so you can actually hear me talking. All right, we're gonna go ahead and hit record so that I can edit this one down as well. Let me jump into, okay, so I've got a lot of questions on this one. Again, for you guys over that aren't on the YouTube chat, some of those are really hyper specific questions to your trading scenario. I can't give you straight up trading advice, but I can help you work through maybe some of the issues that you might find with, you know, some of the things that you're looking at, whether it be bands, volatility, stuff like that. But that's going to be more like an individual thing. We'll take a look at the SFP stuff that I kind of teased a little bit earlier. Yep. We've got Sam. Hi, Sam. Hi, Baba. Hi, Spin. Hi, Jedi. Sam asked for Chainlink, and I think Baba trades that as well. Yeah, let's go ahead and take a look at Stinky Linky over here. I know I marked the chart up. I always forget which one. Okay, it's the Binance weekly chart. Well, it's the Binance chart in general. You know, it's right around the pullback area that I had previously spoken of. You know, there is a fairly easy to understand support zone in here, and the way that I'd be looking at this is, you know, it's already been a bearish reclaim of these highs. So if it loses 690 here, it's likely going to go test, you know, 675, which is the basis band on the weekly, to this low side structure over here around 650 to 660. If it loses that, it's going to be, you know, $6, and yeah, it's going to be around the low $6 region that you'll have to look to next. If it loses this low side structure, there was a high put in around this. This is a higher time frame, weekly, I believe, here at 662. So if we did see 690 lost, $7, I believe, has already been tagged, just under it at 694. If it loses this yellow support zone around 690, it's kind of got a zone to bounce around the weekly basis band at 675 down to this low side structure at 660 to 646. If it loses that on a close, it's getting expansion to the downside or continuation to the downside, and I'd be looking for it to run, you know, mid $6 and under around this area. Yeah, right around the lower first standard deviation on the weekly here, which is coming in at $6. So that would be the next area that it would have to hold. But nice short position for myself if I was to see what I wanted to see. For the daily bands, yeah, that's exactly below the lower second standard deviation. Is losing that weekly basis band is the lower second on the daily, which is also below the 200s. So the two 200s here, the EMA and the SMA, are riding this bottom side support around that, you know, 680, deep 680 region at 687 to 690. So that's kind of the line in the sand, in my opinion. If it did get under there, of course, it can swing this low and still get bought back up. So that's what I'd be watching for. And on the daily here, lower term timeframes I don't think are going to be really worth looking at, because you know, most are probably pretty deep in their bearish control zones. The daily is what's going to be more interesting, as it's going to be able to provide some of those setups for you to be looking at in those lower term time frames. Back above 737 as it stands right now would turn momentum. It's trading at 709. The 12-hour trying to keep it up above there at 707 for momentum. It did do what I like here, which is a nice little setup that I like to trade often when I am tracking coins and counter trading the trend. Is it hit the lower second expands below into the downside support area here. It comes down, it spikes, it gets bought back up above that wick low. So it's likely to become a swing fail pattern if it can start closing back above the high of this little consolidation, which is basically 725.26 area, depending on your exchange. That would also be above the lower first, and the first target would be around the basis band, which is coming in at this low over here. Where the basis band is coming in at 740. That low is coming in at 740 or so, 739. I would just be aware if it was to reject at that wick low, which is at 728, that's right around the current wick high, and that would be like a swing of this area, and then you're looking back down. You know, as for like the 4 hour, it's in a consolidation. It's starting to get expansion. Momentum will twist back up on the next 4 hour closure above 703, but that's not telling me much. We've got a doji inside of support here, but below the 200s. You know, wick down and up. That's just the start of expansion. So it's really about, you know, which vital areas to the downside or upside does it break from here. And that's gonna be Link. Yes, I can do ETH for you guys over there. We got Coinbase ETH. Came right down here on the 4 hour and daily to that wick low area that I've been talking about at the lower second. I just got a sneak peek of momentum there. It does not look good. Obviously, when things are straight down like this, you know, when in your closes, it bounces, but the lower high closes here and lower low closes are going to keep that momentum pretty deep down there. Most stock momentums are reading this last little keel over. If it loses the lower second here, just like I said last week, at 1816, it's 1800 and high 1700 areas around these low side structures. So you've got 1795, 1800 to the wick areas around where the lower third, the 200 EMA and 200 SMA are all kind of coming in line with each other, and the upper $1,700 area, 1784 currently on that lower first on the weekly to go along with all of that. So that 1784, 1785 region, wicks past it, I'd be looking to see if things bounce aggressively or not. And back above today's doji, you know, I'd be looking for 1844. I'd be looking for it to go and retest the daily basis, which is right around the weekly basis at around 1850 to 1865 or so, as kind of a general range to the upside. Still wouldn't do much, quite honestly. This looks like garbage at the moment, but if it does hold this wick low area, you know, it's likely to see a relief bounce off the lows here anyway, even if it does dive a little bit deeper. Just got to see a low put in, and then we can gauge it from there. 1828, by the way, would turn this back to the upside. Currently trading at 1819, so it's within striking distance at these highs at around 1834. The open and close structures here of this little consolidation and then wick down. If it can hold the local wick and this wick over here at that 1819, 1820 area, and it does start to close back above these close opens here that are still below the lower first standard deviation, that'd be an indication that the daily would start to turn on its close over close momentum as it's kind of getting weaker. It's on the lower second, typically a reversal area, if it cannot get continuation past the supports. So continuation past the supports, we're headed down at the lower second, and if it does hold this area, it's likely to reverse and try back up. Still doesn't do much, nothing really interesting on ETH until it at least takes out this little high side area here at around 1886 to 1890. So that would be ETH for you. Let's see what else. Oh, Baba says Sam is my brother. Nice. Well, welcome, guys. I'm glad you're here. Yeah. For you guys over there that are screaming Doge. Yeah, Doge is on its lower first standard deviation area. It's below the 200s on the daily. It did put in a low back here. But you might recall that I had said it needs to take out this open up here to really do anything interesting around the upper first at 7.8 cents or 7.85 cents. So it kind of pinned out the 200s here, or the 200 SMA here, got back below the basis, and now tagged that lower first. You know, if it does lose today's wick low at around 7.17 cents, I would look for the next wick low close open area at around 6.96. Nice. And 7.04 cents. So 7.04 cents. And if this area is lost, then I'd be targeting the lower second standard deviation around 6.87 cents. I think that's what that says. Yeah, 6.87 cents. If it can take out, you know, whenever it does bounce, if it were to bounce from here off that lower first, then I would be looking for anything that takes out 7.7 cents on a close. And then I would start to target a little bit higher. But what you got to be careful about is that's right at the resistance, that overhead resistance. So you don't want to see a swing of it that then just heads up to the upper first and rejects, or even the upper second at this point around the highs. You're not really looking at, you know, for much more at that point. We do have the EMA under the SMA indicating that it's more aggressive downside pressure still until it can get some sustained closures above those 200s in the strong half of the Bollinger Bands. So, you know, momentum on the daily is still headed down below 7.64 cents at this particular moment. But, you know, from the band setup, I honestly, if it does head down to the lower second, it's around some low side supports. You know, it does have some history. There's some highs just around here as well. So we've got some lows, some highs. It would be a decent inflection point for it to try and pull off a reversal at around that, you know, 6.8 cents or so. That's what I would be looking for Doge, if that's, you know, kind of the, if you're gonna trade it down. Is that what you're saying? Oh yeah, if you're gonna trade it down, it's basically below today's wick low. You can set up like a little swing fail area, because where's it closing in basically, and it's closing inside of these wicks here at 7.25 cents or so. So if it does start closing below 7.25 cents, I'd watch the current wick low at that lower first standard deviation, as it did wick into it at around 7.17 cents. Because below there, then you're looking for, you know, that upper 6 cent region, lower 7 cent region. And yeah, you're dealing with much smaller numbers, but, you know, it can be a decent trade. Back to the upside, I mean, it's in the middle of, you know, local consolidation resistance across some of these more medium-term time frames. The 12-hour, yeah, is up above 7.34. It is currently trading below there, so this would turn back down, at least initially. Did get it, you know, that nice poke just like we saw on, I think was it Link? On the 12-hour, we saw a drive down into that lower second, third area, and then a bounce, and then it comes back up and retests the lower second. Now what I'd be looking for is, close above this weekly basis band at around, well, that's somewhere in the 7-cent region. That's going to be roughly 7.34 cents, around where this 12-hour lower first is. If it can start regaining that, then targeting the close here at around 7.586 to the wick high, just above the basis band there at 7.7, right? That's the way that I would look at it, but you have to evaluate the timeframes below. Work your way down the timeframes and see what the viability is, trend, support, resistance, expansion, contraction, that kind of stuff. And then that's going to drive your momentum for those timeframes. Yeah, I can look at it. 4-hour, it did not, it broke this little consolidation, but it didn't really get it's a little messy. I would need to see it above, this last high, which is the same area that we were it's actually a little bit higher than the area we were pointing out. But if it can pass that 7.7 cents, yeah. Yes, it's above the 200s. So just so you know, over there in YouTube land, I have another chat over here for people who cannot chat on YouTube because of work or whatever, restrictions for logging into certain websites when they're at work. So they have a separate chat that they're asking questions in. Yeah, momentum 7.38 cents, so basically 7.4 cents, would turn back up for the 4-hour, but right now, it's right on the edge. So if it does lose the 200s, this wick low area just below it as well, I would look for its current wick. I mean, if it just swings it, fine, but just know that would be below the basis band on the weekly, getting expansion to the downside below on the 4-hour. As it stands right now, the opportunity for it to set up a shorter term time frame reversal off of this lower second area is high because it's into the 200s. It's at an area that did provide a bounce before. There is high side structure over here, but you'd realistically want to see it back above the lower first here at 7.38 cents, and then take out this open of this candle here at around 7.45 cents or so, which, if you're going to be taking that, it's basically the basis at 7.5 cents. Yeah, I hope that helps. Okay, what else we got here? ETH, yep, did ETH, did Link, and we just did Doge. I don't have too much more time for alts specifically, so if you guys do have any questions and you have any requests for alts, go ahead and put them in the chat now. Okay. Music's too loud? You couldn't hear me? Hey guys over in YouTube, is the music too loud? Are you able to hear me okay? Let me know. We're in the request portion, so I don't want it, your request to get stomped on by the music. Let me know. Some of the guys over here have said that they couldn't quite hear me. Music was too loud. I have two different mixes going out for the audio, so you guys will have to let me know over in YouTube if it's too loud for you. I do apologize. I didn't realize that it was still that loud for you guys over there. Yeah, that's from the beginning of the stream. So for those of you on YouTube, if you are at the keyboard, let me know. And I will take a few more. Music is okay. And I got a request from the wonderful JRTA, creator of the levels, the Bollinger Band levels that you can select the time frames for, that shows up off to the side here, has asked me to look at ADA. Yeah. ADA is, Oh, which do you have any specific ooh. Well, looking at Coinbase, I can tell you ADA is looking for expansion further down. No problem, Baba. Yeah, for JR, there's two mixes of the stream going out, so just want to make sure that it was good for you guys. I'm glad that it is not too loud. You know, it's coming into an area of support, but that's some pretty aggressive expansion on the bands right there after a nice compression. You know, I'd be targeting the lows from the looks of the weekly. I'd be targeting, so longer term, I'd be targeting around 24 cents. Around the lower second standard deviation, around the current low side structure. The only way that it can avoid that is really to try to hold this wick low here at 28 cents or so. 28.17 cents on spot to avoid really locking this area in as a top that's going to go and test this area down here. Otherwise, I'd be looking at 24 to 26 cents initially. And if it starts closing below that lower second and doesn't reverse off of it, then I'd be looking much further down if it lost that 23 cent area. Now, that said, if it can, from the weekly perspective, regain around that 30 cent region, I'd be looking for it to run 30 35 cents. But anything below this last spike high, which is around this lower high on the weekly, you know, it set in it actually confirmed a higher low and then lower high dump off, spiked it almost immediately there at 38 cents. And then it's, you know, just a rejection. So that's going to be the big area to the upside. Of course, it's got to get past this last high at around 30 to 31 cents. Along with that wick, it's going to be tough. It's going to be a tough road to hoe for but you guys are the ones that were citing it over there. Yeah, I was just reading it out of the corner of my eye. It's going to be tough sledding for ADA here. Could it pull off a reversal off the lower second? Yeah, I have no opinion. Closure's back above 28.95 cents. So basically 29 cents. It's got a chance. That's the lower first on the weekly. That would be the lower first area, 29.62 cents, so about 29.5 probably by the time today's candle closes. Then it's got a chance. It's got a chance to go test this low over here at around 30 cents. If it can recover there, take it to the next high area on a close open basis at 31.5 to the which is the upper first standard deviation of the Bollinger Bands, by the way. To around that, you know, just shy of 32 cent area. And then if it can get closes up there, then you can raise your targets to wherever the upper second is coming in. You know, you'd want to see a reversal happen pretty quick off this lower second and regain that lower first area here at around that 29.5 to 29.6 cent region. And then kind of go from there. But it's living below that basis band in this low side structure at 30 cents is likely going to cause some issues. There's highs over here, lows over here. It's a bearish reclaim. You know, my personal take on this is that it's going to keep trending down to this low at around 27.5 cents or so, maybe a little bit above it. There at 27.6 cents. To 27.5, around where this lower third is over time, like just kind of grinding it down sideways. But I don't really have an opinion if it does start to turn its daily back up, and it's likely going to try and at least bounce to a lower high, right? I mean, it's an altcoin. What's the weekly looking like? The weekly's still up on any closures above 26.83 cents. So, you know, this would be the same scenario that I just showed a few times on some of the other lower term time frames, but you spike into the lower second and third area and then you come back and retest it. That's in, and you want to see the retest come in higher, not necessarily lower. although lower would probably provide a drive of bullish divergence on this. If we look at RSI, it's the summer, so there's a comment over here in the other chat that's like, it's across all industries, it's all doom and gloom, and that's the summer, man. That's the summer. When it comes to charting a lot of this stuff, it's not that abnormal. I mean, you had early summer rally, now it's late summer, so end of summer into, you know, the into Q4, right? It's not abnormal. Yeah. RSI would provide a good bounce on ADA from the weekly perspective if it did head down. Now, this is all hypothetical, right? If it breaks some of the areas that I just talked about. But bear control zones around 26.66. Uh-oh, devil's number again. But that would still be, you know, a decent area all the way down to this actual prior low. Where is this? So let's go ahead and actually do a little bit more research here on this one, because I feel like ADA is gonna keel over and die, and I need to see if my thesis on that is even, that's because that's not technical, that's a feeling, right? So we gotta see if what areas would it keel over and die in. I doubt it. So if you're like a Cardano lover, I doubt that it's actually going to keel over and die, but that would be below a 35.2 read, so 35. Let's move the bearish control zone down there and see what we come up with here. That would be, bearish control zone is 23.93 cents, and that weekly low is coming in at 23 cents. So it would have a chance for bearish divergence down there. Or I'm sorry, bearish divergence, bullish divergence. If it did get down below this prior low on a close, especially, so below 26 cents, it's likely to try and pull off some bullish divergence on the weekly, and that would actually probably bounce it pretty hard, relatively speaking. Have a nice bullish divergence, got like a pretty major low area set in, you know, on the dailies down here, especially if it retests again. But you know, just be aware that it could retest here and try higher. Just keep an eye on that daily. It's getting a little hot to trap, but still downside angled across the daily 2-day. I suspect 2-day is looking the same way. Yeah, but 2-day is on the lower first, which is the 2-day lower first and the weekly lower first. So that is something to note here. Lower seconds coming in at around 26.94, basically 27 cents, which is this last low. Yeah, you know, I'm not of the opinion that it can't dig itself out above 31.68 cents on the 2-day. That would turn it up. You'll get above 30 cents on the daily. Will give you the indication of whether it's going to test that area and that momentum pivot on the 2-day as well. Hope that helps. Lower term time frames looks like shit. Excuse my language. Yep, strong downtrend, rejecting at the basis. If Stoke turns here, it's either got to hold the lower second at around 28.44, or it's gonna head right back down to this wick and test 28.17, 28.16, and possibly lower. Above the last spike high in the upper first standard deviation, at around 28.97, so 29 cents, and then it can go test those areas that we talked about around 30 cents, where the 15-minute 200s are. Any other requests? If you do have any, get them in now. You guys are good over there? Yeah, I'm gonna have to talk to you If you want help with that, buddy, I'm gonna have to talk to you individually when I do my conference call with you guys. For you guys over in YouTube, any other requests, or you guys all good? Sorry, microphone stand squeaking a little bit as I move the microphone around. Somebody in the other chat says I need to do just a dedicated Landy Rants segment. There's a lot that I could rant about. Yes, there's no shortage of things that Landy can rant about. Oh, you want me to keep it crypto specific? Still, no shortage of things for me to rant about. Doesn't look like I'll let you guys catch up over there in YouTube for just a moment, and then I'm going to probably wrap this up if there is no other requests here after you guys catch up. Let me go and check over here as well. We'll go back to Bitcoin. Bitcoin got that nice little bounce off the low side structure. Yeah, we'll wrap it up with this then if there's no other requests. All right, swing fails. This is going to be the wrap up for you guys. Swing fail structures are, we've talked about them quite a bit lately. Let's just turn this back on. I believe this was the last one that we had been looking at. Yeah, the downside swing fail areas. Did I have any others on here? Yeah. All right, so let's take a look. We can turn off the bands so we can get a clear look at the chart here. We'll throw on the volume, and we can see that this is working fairly well, right? Because it's pretty key areas that we've been trading in, but so yes, I agree, it's working very well. The highest volume that we've seen now since this wick low over the weekend, I believe this was over the weekend. It was Friday, late Friday, or Friday afternoon, and came right down to that this wick low of this particular move that kind of defined this swing structure here. Came down and retested it, and then this area here was retested again earlier today. Right before I started to stream, it started to bounce, and that of course is also the weekly basis band around the 28.6 region, and it was heading up and found resistance right here at another higher volume area. So we got this the most recent high volume low that was just set. If we do see closures below there, I would expect things to go test these two wick areas around this wick low here at, let's get that actually right on there, 28,552 to that low there at 28,477. And then if it breaks down from there, then I'm looking down to 28K at first, which is that weekly. So that's going to do it for the swing fail areas. I am developing the course material a little bit more. Got to hit some milestones. YouTube has been not very kind to Bitcoin content specifically lately. If you can leave me a like on the way out the door here, if you are on YouTube, that would very much help things. Even though I do think that they are kind of going to deboost Bitcoin specific content. They've been getting rid of quite a few channels that do Bitcoin analysis, or whether it's fundamental analysis or hi Cheryl, I'm just wrapping up. They are getting rid of a lot of Bitcoin channels that do fundamental analysis as well as technical analysis. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I don't really know what the reasons are for that. I have noticed it in the metrics that my videos have been going nowhere in terms of reach, which is, you know, outside of you guys who are already subscribed. The reach metric is just garbage. It's not even pushing any of those videos anymore. And, you know, I haven't changed really anything, and it was very sudden. Like, videos were doing really good, and then boom, not even being shown. And I've gotten many reports that can't even find them when I'm linking people directly to them. I don't know what that's about. So I might be taking content and putting it on Twitter now that they've been fleshing out a lot of their services. We'll see which direction things go. I still want to grow YouTube. Very close to the 500 milestone, so if you can help me with that, that'd be great. But gonna take things to Twitter, X rather. That will stop a bit on some of the YouTube growth, but you know, we'll go from there. So if things do, like, for some reason, like, the channel disappears, you can find me on Twitter, you can find me on TikTok. It's the same, at LandyCC on TikTok. I upload there. I don't chat though, and comments are disabled because there is loads of scammers there. And then for the Twitter side of things, you know, which is not Twitter anymore, it's X. Sorry, I'm never gonna get used to that. But the posts there, I will start experimenting with that stuff. And if they do start implementing live streams from the computer and not just the phone, which I think they're working on, that will fundamentally change that platform, and I might be looking to grow that a little bit more. But for right now, if you can help with likes, subs, shares, that will help push us over some of the milestones here for YouTube. And then see if we can't start getting some educational material out there for you. Hi, Cheryl. It's my hand. My wrist is bothering me, but thank you. Hopefully it's not a premonition and I'm gonna injure my foot, because that would suck. I do appreciate you asking. Yeah, I injured my wrist, but I'll be fine. So far I know it's not broken, so that's good. And it's my non-dominant hand, so I can still do all my charting. But what I will say, and I'll leave you with this, is, geez, if you get a message from me that I can't do Bitcoin in 60 seconds later because of my foot, now you know who to blame, huh? Just kidding. All right, so I do want to thank you guys in both chats here for hanging out. Not as many in YouTube today. It was an odd time for me to start, and it might actually be the time going forward. So we'll see how things go. But thank you guys over on the other stream here. That yeah, for Parsec. Yeah, thank you for hanging out. I will call you guys. I'll call into the conference call later. And for you guys here on YouTube, I appreciate you hanging out, and I will wish you a wonderful morning, afternoon, and evening. No matter where you are in the world, please trade safe. And of course, as always, stay safe. With all of that being said, Landy out.